it as well, but she doesn't have it near as badly as he did. He went in the hospital the same day. It hit him so hard.
So does our board clerk know if we have everyone we're expecting?
I believe we do, Madam Chair, and we are live, ready to go. So, Leah, it's over to you.
Do we have the PowerPoint available?
We do, coming up momentarily.
Thank you. All right, so Chair Harrington, would you like to do welcome and introductions, please?
Welcome everyone to the joint meeting of the Washington County Board of Commissioners and the Washington County Fair Board. Today, Tuesday, October 12th, 2021. This is Chair Catherine Harrington. I am joined by my fellow members on the Washington County Board of Commissioners, Vice Chair Pam Treese, Commissioner Jerry Willey, Roy Rogers, and Nafisa Fai. And I'll leave it to the chair of the Fair Board to do those introductions.
Gary, are you on?
Yeah, I'm on, but I have no video because I'm on telephone. I'm back east at Washington, D.C. And so I'm on, but I can't see who is on the phone. So Andy, if I can you to do that, that'd be great.
Okay, I'm Andy Dyke. I'm the vice chair of the Fair Board, taking over for Gary. Gary Seidel is the chair. We also have Ajoy Naveen. I never get your last name right, Ajoy. Jerry Willey also is on our board, as well as let's see who else we have. David Noyes, and am I missing anybody? I think that's all that's with us.
You got Bob Rollinger.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Bob Rollinger is up there, and with Bob is Bill Ganger. So Bill's in the background. You won't see him in the picture. So I think we have our whole Fair Board here.
Great, thank you. Next slide, please. Nope. There we go. And Sia Lindstrom is going to give us a little update on roles and responsibilities.
Good afternoon, everyone. For the record, my name is Sia Lindstrom. I'm the interim assistant county administrator, and I serve as the liaison between the county administrative office and the fair complex, now Westside Commons. And Leah just asked me to do a quick review. This graphic will look familiar to many of you. This is a graphic that we've used as an orientation tool to the different bodies that are associated with Westside Commons. Board of Commissioners obviously has overall authority in including approval of budgets and approval of members for both the Fair Board and the Fairgrounds Advisory Committee. On the lower left is the Fair Board. This is a statutory body, has responsibility for overseeing the planning of the annual county fair and implementation of that fair and the fair budget. And then on the right is the Fairgrounds Advisory Committee, advisory created and appointed by the Board of County Commissioners to provide advice to the board on the Fairgrounds Master Plan, capital project plans, and other major site-related initiatives. And so this just gives you, for those who are new to our work together, gives you an overview of the different bodies that we have in the room today, actually. I know that we've got Daniel Pearson, who is chair of the Fairgrounds Advisory Committee, with us as well. And Chair Harrington, please.
Thank you, Sia. I just want to try and confirm something. Under the Board of Commissioners, where the fourth bullet talks about approving the fair and the fair complex budgets, we're most familiar with our annual budget cycle and our Washington County budget, bringing all of the component pieces of the budget in together. Do we approve the fair budget and the fair complex budget at that same time during that annual process, or is it done separately? Because we don't spend very much time on it. So I just want to try and reinforce making sure that all members of the Board of Commissioners are clear on that.
Yes, thank you for that. Thank you for that question, Chair. Yes, you are right. You do consider the fair budget as part, it's a program line of the larger fair complex budget. Thank you. And you do consider it as part of your $1 billion plus budget every year. Thank you for that. The last thing, yes, any other questions before I have one last thing before I turn it over to Daniel Pearson? Okay. I'm not quite seeing everybody, so if I miss a hand in the room, please somebody let me know. The last thing I leave you with is a brief introduction. I don't think we have her in the room, but I'd like to make sure you all know Rachel Fuller. She is serving as Interim Assistant County Administrator. I will be leaving the county in a couple of weeks, and Rachel will be taking over as the liaison from the County Administrative Office to the Fair Complex. Rachel is serving as part of that bridge in leadership here as we have some changes going on in the County Administrative Office. So I hope when you get a chance, you'll welcome Rachel to the team. And with that, I would ask for next slide, and I'll turn it over to Daniel Pearson to talk about the Fairgrounds Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Sia. Good afternoon, County Commissioners, members of the Fair Board, and any other guests we have here today. Very pleased to be here to provide an update on the Fairgrounds Advisory Committee activities over the last year and provide a brief update. So as you can see here on the slide, in last year, we did provide or make some updates to the bylaws for the FAC. Created a position reserved for the mayor or designee from the city of Hillsborough, since we are in their city limits. We created 2 new positions to allow expanded participation as requested by the board. We defined representatives and stakeholder participation for the FAC, and then made a change to make sure it was clear that the removal of committee members can only be done by the board. So we did those earlier in 2020. And then our last meeting in April of 2021, we were provided an update of the COVID impacts, which I think everybody knows has been great across not only the Fairgrounds West Side Commons, but everywhere. But impacts on the facility, the reopening plans we heard about at the time. I recall just after that meeting was one of the first events we were having at the West Side Commons. I think it was the Reptile Fair. So kind of kicked off those activities. And then also we provided feedback on the proposed Fairgrounds maintenance plan and recommended approval by the CAO. So as was summarized in the previous slide about the responsibilities, the Fairgrounds Advisory Committee, not having, a fiduciary responsibility as far as directly controlling the budget, but making recommendation and feedback based on what we're hearing. And since we all come to the FAC with different viewpoints from the community. So thank you for this opportunity to provide this update and look forward to future activities at the FAC. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Next slide, please. And Gary Seidel, the Fair Board President, is going to present you the Fair Board strategic plan that the Fair Board updated in October of 2019.
Yeah, Board of Commissioners, County Commissioner, Fair Board, welcome. Like Leah said, the Washington County Fair Board put together a strategic plan in October of 2019. We really haven't had a chance to emphasize and put a lot of it in practice due to COVID, and that's kind of taken a big impact on what's going on. But the mission of the Washington County Fair Board is to present a county fair that embraces heritage, future of the Washington County with a big focus on education and entertainment throughout the community. The board does oversee the planning, preparing, and production of the county fair with the fair manager and the venue manager as well. We have several goals. We have 5 goals to be able to go over. And the first one happens to be trying to maximize attendance by ensuring a safe, healthy, resilient, and enjoyable experience. How do we do that? We put a big emphasis on repeat business. We also want to make sure we have a good balance between livestock, home arts, education, entertainment, and heritage through all the days of the fair. So now that we've gone to a 10-day fair, we want to make sure that we keep it for all 10 days. We try to improve access to the fair events activities, especially parking, food, and carnival lines. Some of the issues that we have being able to deal with that is the maintenance budget. As most of you know, we need to get the master plan moving. We need to get funding and approval to be able to replace the buildings, as well as fix some of the structures in there. We have a lot of issues in there. We've identified the Cloverleaf building, small animal barn, goats, sheep barn, cattle barn, as well as the pavilion. And then facility-wide, we need to basically do electrical enhancements, deal with increased water, sewage, perimeter fencing, RV parking in there, as well as the restrooms, make them all ADA up to regulations and code in there. A lot of it is we have 100,000 in this year's budget to be able to get it done, but most of the funds come from the capital SEA enhancement, enhancement funds, and we haven't been able to get it. Like I said, the master plan funding would be the great advantage getting that done. On goal number 2, we promote strategies that ensure a safe and healthy fair for the members and the public, as well as anybody that's participating in the fair. How do we do that? Reduce the risk, potential disease transmissions from animal to human or human to animal. Reduce the risk within the facilities and the buildings as well. We ensure that we have safety and security with law enforcement, private security. We develop policies regarding unsupervised youth at the fair, as well as strategy for smoking and vaping enforcement in there. Throughout the past couple of years, we've been able to put together a biosecurity plan that probably is an enhancement for all the fairs in the state of Oregon, which is ours is pretty darn good. We worked with county risk, county health, Department of Health through the state, and we also brought in some experts to be able to assist us. We worked with 4-H, and we put together a real good biosecurity plan in there. As far as safety and security, we do get law enforcement. Matter of fact, Lee and I met with this year with Washington County Sheriffs to be able to work out a new MOU to be able to make sure they could continue to support us. And we have private security, and we have 2 former, one police officer from Hillsborough and one from the sheriff that basically come on contract to be able to make sure that during the days of the fair, we have good enhancement of law enforcement too. And then we have a lot of their undercover agents to make sure if we have any issues in there, whether it's drugs, gangs, dealing with trafficking, or dealing with kid enforcement in there, we make sure that we got the right officers there that could identify any potential threats to us. The third goal that we work on is enhancing the fair's foundational programming by focusing on education as well as interactive experience. And so we try to deal with maintaining the exhibits, traditional exhibits, as well as going back and hitting some of the heritage exhibits to make sure we don't lose that transition from what's in the past too. We try to ensure that we've got good cultural diversity programs in there by partnering up with local groups that can bring in those ethnic specific programs and activities to the fair. And we definitely involve all the Fair Board in developing these partnerships, whether it's agriculture, livestock associations, or the Farm Bureau. Some of the issues and concerns that we have meeting that goal is we do need facility funding, and we do need the Board of Commissioners to definitely start to help and support us in getting a master plan so we can get that funding to be able to meet the needs of what's going on with the fair. Because without that approved and funded master plan, the Fair Board really cannot adequately deliver our duties in there. And so we need to make sure that we get that. And so right now we are lacking, we are failing to meet that community's agricultural livestock needs to the fair because we do not have all the buildings. We've been real good on taking buildings down, but we have not been good at putting buildings back up. And again, over the last 10 years, we've spent over $300,000 just to put the tents up to be able to support the animals. Like we said, it'd be nice to have a funded master plan to be able to do it right in there. Constantly, we get criticized by 4-H and livestock community in this area. But one thing we'd like to do is we are the only fair in the state where the Fair Board has supported a history of supporting livestock community. We have been able to purchase through trade, sponsorships, and cash. We've been able to get sheep, goat panels, cattle panels, small animal cages, and right now we're in the process of purchasing horse panels. So again, we also worked with leading specialists in the biosecurity realm to be able to develop those policies, assist and educate our livestock community, which would include 4-H and FFA. The fourth goal is the enhancement of jurisdictional, corporate, and community partnerships. So we do work with the surrounding communities to be able to gather that. We've got good business partners. Matter of fact, Coastal is one that definitely assists us in there. And then we've also got community through volunteers and civic groups like Rotary, been able to make sure that we get assistance to be able to manage and run the fair. And the last goal we have is maintain effective and efficient governance and administration. So review all the policies that we put in place, and we keep those updated as needed. We try to increase revenue in the areas that don't increase expenses, such as sponsorship, food, and the carnival, to be able to help those non-revenue generating areas where the costs continue to increase. We do pursue sustainability issues, such as recycling, such as LED and that. And then we do evaluate the fair annually with surveys and focus groups. Here we have some concerns. And the big concern right now is the Board of Commissioners continues to undermine us in that, because what do? We see processes where the violation of the Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, that we have with the fair and the Board of Commissioners in there. And what we see is that basically it erodes some of the efforts that the Fair Board does, because we've got good knowledge, we've got good history of the fair, and we've developed those relationships with livestock community, with 4-H and FFA. But the problem is when we get somebody on the Board of Commissioners that goes in and meets with 4-H or FFA, it undermines what's going on, and it erodes the efforts we do, because they're not fully educated on what's going on with the fair. And I know Andy and I talked with Bob Davis a couple of years on an issue that came up, and I know Sia was there as well when we redid that issue. But we got to remind them that we're responsible for taking care of the fair, and we do work under you. But again, you got to let us do our job. And if you don't let us know what's going on, you don't tell us, or you don't solicit our input, we can't do it. And what we do is we get complaints that do come in. And with those complaints, it requires us to do additional meetings and also look at a lot of the complaint letters that come in. And we find out there's no foundation, their funding, or the stuff that they're talking about. A lot of it is non-authentic, and we've got to go back and redo the damage that's done. So what we'd like to do is to be able to make sure that everybody is aware of what the MOU states, that during the Fair Board is the one that's supposed to be working on this. So that's all I've got in the strategic plan. If I have questions, I'll be glad to take questions.
Okay, seeing no questions from our panelists. Next slide, please.
Hey, before we go on,
Yep.
Tanya, before we go, I'm not, I guess I'm not close to this issue as some of the rest of you are, but that's kind of a serious allegation that shouldn't go unchecked. Why are you saying we're undermining you? I know just from my standpoint, you said that globally. I don't really have any involvement with any of this other than to appreciate your efforts and know what's going on with the fair and try to understand better. So can you elaborate a little bit? I guess it takes me back when you paint this with this brush of we're not supporting.
Commissioner Rogers, yeah, I definitely can. I can go back in there to realize what's going on. We've been getting a lot of feedback that's come back, and Chair Harrington is aware of it in there, where she met with the 4-H and the FFA during the fair. Didn't even call us to be able to come in. And then the next thing we've got is over the last 2 months, we're getting a lot of complaint letters that we got to go back that aren't even authentic, and all the issues in there. And so we're doing a lot of work to undo what's going on, and it's eroded all the good work we've got going on. And I don't know exactly why that's happening, but I know it's creating a heck of a lot of problems for us to be able to do our job.
Well, thank you for your response. I mean, you said all of this. So I don't know if that's the case, but I appreciate what you're saying. maybe we can take it offline, but.
Yeah, we definitely do that. Yeah, because like I said 2 years ago when Andy and I met with Bob Davis, we had similar problems in there. So like it's happened occasionally what's going on. We just to be able to make sure that everybody's aware of the MOU that we got in place, because it's been about, Leo can definitely give me the year. I think it's been about 8 years that we put that in place. Because I remember being on the board when we stuck it in. Like we said, it was working real good, but occasionally we get little undermining that occurs, and I don't think it's done on purpose, but I think it's just that we don't know all the issues going on, and so we try to get in there. And the reason I brought it up is this definitely fits right in with Goal 5.
So,
Thank you.
since this assertion has been directed at me, this Board of Commissioners knows that during the fair, I was asked to meet with some of the 4-H horse folks and to watch their event. And I'll meet with anybody. That invitation continues to stand. And so I did meet with them. Any and all results of that meeting have been reviewed with the CAO and Andy, and all communication that I've had has been shared with you, the board. And as folks have contacted me to get information to the Fair Board, I have in turn directed that to the CAO so that it would be shared with the Fair Board. So as we each know as elected officials, there is no agreement that stands that would restrict us from ever meeting with any constituents in our district. And if that needs further clarification, I would direct folks to our County Counsel, Tom Carr.
Yeah, that's understandable in there. But when the meeting did occur, we didn't know anything about the time. And when it came back to us through emails, it came back in the letter of complaints where decisions were made that were non-fair board decisions. And during the fair, we've got the responsibility to be able to, plan, prepare, and put on the production in there. And so, if we are making meetings and making decisions, it'd be nice if a fair board member could have been there with you.
Okay, so I just have a couple slides about just a very quick 2021 County Fair recap. I normally do this at our joint meeting just to give you a little bit of information. And obviously we didn't have a fair in 2020. So I think that our big success for 2021 is that we even had a fair. We planned this fair in just about 3 months. So we still are very proud that we even managed to have one with 3 staff members and support of the Fair Board and the community. We were able to have a fair, and we're very proud that we were able to do that. The animals, while we didn't have very many of them on site, the ones that were there were very well visited and very well enjoyed by the public. The wingspan was a great benefit to the fair with air conditioning and bathrooms and water fountains, and lots of great compliments about the wingspan being used for the fair. We had some great new and returning volunteer groups that really helped pull off the fair. We also had some great new contractors and new vendors and new entertainers that rallied when, we said we were having a fair and it's going to be in a couple of months. They all, came on board and got to work. And so we were very appreciative of that. That was a big success for us, trying to coordinate vendors and entertainers that hadn't worked in almost 2 years. That was a big challenge, and our staff did a great job. And then I think public safety. We all know that the governor removed all of the COVID rules right before the fair, but we still had a great public safety representation, the Sheriff's Department and the Hillsborough Police Department, but we also had our private security and things like that. And while we didn't require masks, we did encourage masks, and we did see a lot of mask wearing during the fair, but we didn't really have any public safety issues. Again, over the years, I've been here a little over 20 years, occasionally we have problems with gangs and people that have a little too much to drink or other issues. And we didn't have a ton of issues this year. We've had more issues in 4 days than we had in 10. So I think people were ready to get out, and they mostly behaved themselves. I think they were a little bit grateful to be out in public again. But we had some major challenges, and I never want to I just want to be very clear that we had a lot of challenges. And, our biggest challenge is we were pandemic affected. We happened in that very short window of COVID was over, but it really wasn't over. And everybody got really lax. And then the Delta variant came and surged. So we were a very pandemic affected fair. We also had major challenges about the public perception that 4-H and FFA were being excluded this year. And it was very hard to communicate that those programs, especially 4-H, were severely affected this year by COVID. Their numbers are normally in upwards of 1,500, and we were told by their leadership at that time that they had less than 250 kids in the program this year. So it was really hard. The public, when we said we were having a fair, they really believed that they were getting their full fair experience. So some of the public was disappointed that it wasn't just a completely normal fair. And I'm sure it's no surprise to anybody that challenges for staffing were very, very big. That's, we're hearing that across the board still, but we had a lot of staffing challenges, from parking staff to cashiering staff. The food vendors had a heck of a time finding people to cook and serve food. Equipment was hard to come by. It was hard to get equipment. When we could get equipment, there wasn't drivers to deliver equipment. We had a lot of complaints about costs. Costs for food were sky high this year. It was even shocking to me as a veteran of the fair industry who sees a lot of very expensive food costs. I'm sure many of you don't know that Cisco Foods stopped serving mobile concessions the week before the fair, and were only serving brick and mortar restaurants because they had staffing issues. So that meant that instead of getting wholesale food at Cisco, our food vendors were buying food at Albertsons and Costco. So their costs were much higher. We had complaints about lack of concerts. It's hard to get concerts together in just a couple of months. So concerts weren't available this year. And then, we've all talked about it before, but just for those of you that haven't heard, we had a lot of complaints about the new 4-H horse arena that we are working on, and we're putting together a group to work on those issues. But it was a challenge during the fair. So we had some challenges, but we had some successes. And looking back in the rear view, we're just grateful that we had a fair. Next slide, please. So just some figures. Attendance. So it's hard to compare a 4-day fair to a 10-day fair. You can't really compare them. They're apples to oranges. So I'm really looking at them as operating hours. In 4 days, we normally operated for 56 hours, and our average attendance is roughly in the high 90s. But in 2019, we had a little over 89,000 people. And so this year, over 10 days, total operating hours of 82. We had just a little over 180,000 people come to the fair. And just as a reminder, we only count the people who come through the actual turnstiles at our 2 entrance gates. Carnival did very well. You've heard me say it before, and I'm going to say it again. Carnival remains very, very popular at the fair. The lines were very long all the time. That is a complaint that we get, is the lines to get on those rides. There's more people than ability to get on the rides. But revenue did very, very well. Again, like President Seidel alluded to earlier, we really do try to increase revenues in areas where we can, to really make sure that we can still support the sides that don't generate revenue. Commercial vendor revenue was up significantly. That is thanks to the wingspan. The wingspan was able to allow the fair board to sell more vendor space, and those vendors paid more to be inside a brand new state-of-the-art building with Wi-Fi, air conditioning, and beautiful bathrooms. So thank you, County Commissioners, for building us such an amazing building that supports the community and the fair. Concession revenue, which includes alcohol, is up slightly this year. It's not up as much as I would have thought, but again, with the high prices of food, it's not overly surprising that people didn't buy as much. Parking revenue, again, comparing them by operating hours, we only operated 62 hours as opposed to 56 hours, and did very well for generating parking revenue again this year. And livestock numbers, we all know that the livestock barns were very, very empty this year. But what we did have, we were very appreciative. We had some 4-H horses. We had some horses from the sheriff's posse that were also very popular. We brought in a couple longhorn cattle. And I do want to thank Bill Ganger from the Fair Board, who brought in his 6 beef calves during the whole run of the fair. They were very popular, and they were very we very appreciate that they were there. The public really loved those little babies. They were so cute. And then during that first weekend, we had 12 livestock campground sites used. Just for some perspective, we normally have about 80 participants in our campground. So 12 on one weekend. And the following weekend, we had 14 used. The following weekend, week number 2, we had 37 swine, 48 sheep and goats, and I don't have the exact number on small 4-H small animals, but and then compare that with 2019. Combined with 4-H and FFA, we normally have 358 youth with 645 animals, which normally includes 4-H, even though their event was held offsite in 2019. So we all know that that was a big challenge for us, and we are looking forward to welcoming back animals and youth for next year. But hopefully, knock on wood, everybody, that COVID will be a distant memory and we can get back to the normal fair. So, and that is it for my fair recap. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, seeing none. Next slide, please.
Actually, Leah, if I could piggyback on that just a bit. I don't have a question, but I just, yeah. I wanted to add, for those who may not know, part of the reason that we had reduced numbers of livestock showing is because 4-H and FFA kids have to get their market animals in the spring. And if they don't even know there's going to be a fair, they don't get their market animals. So by the time a decision is made that we're going to have the fair, they're not prepared for it. And so that's only a part of the reason, but it's one of the major reasons that there were less people showing this year.
Thank you, Andy.
Yeah, could I say something too, just real quickly? Bill showed me a little of his display out there as well that night that we came out, and I just want to speak for myself. Your fair activities this year were superb, based upon the COVID that we faced. I was amazed. I expected to see about 5 people, 3 tents, and a couple of dogs, and it wasn't like that at all. I mean, there was crowds and people were happy, and as you say, everything went well. So I commend the Fair Board and you. I was a bit surprised. You were kind enough to show me a little bit around that night, and that was kind of you because I know you were extremely busy. But you did great. I mean, better than most businesses did in this economy. I mean, you really held up. So I wanted to thank you for that. Before we got too far
Thank you.
on with this presentation.
Yeah, I thought you did really well too, including under the circumstances that frequently hit the fair, and that is hot weather.
Yes.
Wasn't as bad as the heat dome, but none of us could have imagined what that experience would be like. But nonetheless, so much of the fair activities are outside, exposed to the sun. So I think these results are a good first year for a 10-day fair, and is a tribute to the amount of time and effort that you put into it. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I will pass it along to the staff. They worked very hard. And Commissioner Rogers, initially in April, when the Fair Board said they wanted to have a fair, I thought it was going to be a couple of tents, 5 people, and a couple dogs too. So the fact that this is how it turned out was very pleasing. So thank you for your support. All right, next slide, please. Okay, next slide after that, County Fair financial update. So very quickly, I want to just give a little bit of financial history and maybe a little bit of my own opinions inserted before I give you the financial history for this year and estimate for the end of the year. I went back and looked at just the 5-year history, including this year for our financial. And I just put together really quick revenue and expenditures and what our net was for the actual last 4 fairs. And obviously, in 2020, we didn't have a fair, but we still earned a little bit of revenue because of TLT. And we still spent a little bit of expenditures because we still have to pay the little bit of staff that was here, and we still have to pay utilities and water bills and things like that. So the 2020-21 financials were, $166,000 to the good. And when you look at the 3 years prior to that, the TLT really had to provide a subsidy. When you see a negative number in the net, that means that we used more TLT subsidy than we planned. And there's probably a lot of reasons to those. Some of them are to what Chair Harrington mentioned, and that is heat. In those 2018 and 2019 years, we had some extremely, extremely high heat in those 2 years, and that always affects revenue. We also have people who want to see big name entertainment concerts, and our board and myself will let you know, and I will continue to say it, they're very risky. And sometimes you book a band and they do very well, and sometimes you book one and they don't sell as well. But if you go on to the next slide, please. This is some great news. So 10 days, this is the reason we went 10 days. We always knew if we could just get some more days to earn money, we would put that 4-day fair on, we'd spend a month getting it ready, and then it was over in the blink of an eye in 4 days. And we always thought if we just kept running it, once it's set up, the costs are there. And so we can keep generating revenue if we ran longer. And we really did. The carnival did very well, and food and beverage and parking and all those good things. So we had a good year, and especially for a first 10-day fair in a pandemic. Our year-to-date actuals are just the net's just a little over $500,000, and our estimated year end after we believe that we're going to get just a little bit more of the transient lodging tax than we estimated. Things are rebounding on TLT collection a little bit more than we thought, which is great news. And we still have Department of Agricultural lottery funds that we are going to be getting. The state has committed that those dollars will be coming into county fairs. And then obviously we will still have some expenses that roll in throughout the year, but I'm estimating that we're going to end the year $267,000 to the good, which is great. Just as another little side note, our costs weren't quite as high this year. We normally spend quite a bit of financial support for our livestock side. And obviously with the minimal livestock that we had this year, that financial support wasn't spent this year, and it will be in the future. So maybe we won't be quite this good in future 10-day fairs. We might be less, but maybe we'll have higher attendance and we'll get some more revenue generated. But I think that the good news is the 10-day fair in a pandemic did very well. And so kudos to everybody who made that happen. And I can certainly answer any questions about financials. Okay, seeing none, next slide, please. And now we're going to talk about the 2021-2022 maintenance plan, which is required by the MOU. Next slide, please. So just a little bit of background, because I mean, most of you know this, but some of you are new or might need a refresher. So per Fair Complex Policy 20.100, which was adopted by the Board of Commissioners, the Fair Complex staff submits an annual maintenance plan to the County Administrative Office for approval each year. This provides a policy directive regarding the allocation of scarce resources, i.e. money, to further the public safety and welfare, provide priorities for maintenance, and guide budgeting decisions for the Fair Complex, now known as Westside Commons. Prior to seeking approval from the CAO, Fair Complex staff seeks feedback from the Fair Board as required per the MOU. You heard some of the things that Fair Board President Gary Seidel was talking about, and that's really the support that the Fair Board is really looking for future maintenance plans is support for the agricultural barns and things like that. So these are things that the Fair Board talks about annually. The plan typically includes capital improvements and upgrades that require significant resources. Recently, the plan has been guided by the 2008 facilities assessment. And for those of you who don't know, in 2009 and then an update in 2018, we had Scott Edwards Architecture do a facilities assessment for us to see what buildings were past their useful life, what improvements could be made. They also did a comprehensive look at code compliance, which was great. And it took us about 2 years, but all emergency egress and electrical code compliance upgrades that were recommended in that facilities assessment have been accomplished. The plan does not address routine maintenance that occur on the facilities year round. And the maintenance plan does not include the Wingspan Event and Conference Center. Next slide, please. Just a few past maintenance plan projects. These are just some highlights. Since the creation of the maintenance plan in 2017, 2018, our limited financial resources have been used on a variety of facility improvements. Like I mentioned, code compliance as recommended in the facilities assessment. We acquired the old National Guard Armory a couple of years ago, and it is now our maintenance shop. But that facility needed significant improvements, including a $450,000 replacement to its roof. So that building took some significant improvements, but it is now, it is in great shape at this point for, what it is. There's not a lot more that needs to be done to that building, but it is now serving as an excellent operations and maintenance shop for this facility. And so while it was a little bit of a tough nut to swallow for the expense, it's serving us very well. We created the new 4-H horse arena because the old arena was displaced by the new event center. We've done a lot of barn safety improvements with electrical and lighting and new siding and some redoing of things for biosecurity. The building has had some improvements, electrical and lighting and code exiting and egress. And then we've got some ongoing electrical, exterior lighting, water, sewer, fencing, asphalt, all those kinds of things. We do some of those each and every year. So those are ongoing. Next slide, please. So annually, I submit a request for a maintenance plan to the CAO's office, which I sent to SIA. And this last year for the fiscal year 21-22, this is what I submitted. I requested no new major or capital improvement projects or initiatives. But I did ask to set aside $100,000 in the budget for major unexpected facility needs that may arise that would be needed to protect safety for the public and the staff. And this was approved. This was also recommended for approval by the FAC that Dan Pearson mentioned earlier. And there's a couple reasons for for not asking for any new or major capital improvements, and that is 2 reasons. One is the remaining items from the SEA facilities assessment, which is on the next slide, will require significant investment of resources, meaning a lot of money to make that happen. And the second part is the approved master plan envisions significant upgrades to the Cloverleaf building and a phased replacement of our existing barns and facility-wide infrastructure. However, at this time, there's no funding identified to begin that work. So we're kind of in a little bit of a holding pattern until we find out really kind of what the next steps are, because some of you probably do not know, but some of you do know that Washington County is in the middle of a Washington County facility-wide master planning process. And Chair Harrington, who sits on our facilities advisory committee, who went through this process on our update of our master plan, requested that the Fairgrounds new master plan be rolled into the overall county master plan for facility upgrades. So we're waiting for the deliberation on that work, and that is in process right now. So in the meantime, we're kind of in a little bit of a holding pattern to see what that looks like. But in the meantime, $100,000 was set aside. Of that $100,000, we did actually end up expending $43,000 of that this year, because about 2 weeks before the fair, a giant sinkhole in our pavement near the new 4-H horse arena appeared, and we had to scramble to get that repaired. And it was fairly significant, and it was fairly expensive. So I'm glad that we had that approved $100,000 in the budget set aside for those unexpected facilities needs. Next slide, please. These are the remaining recommendations from the SEA facilities assessment. I'm not going to go over them. They're all in your packet, and they have not changed. I've presented this in the past, and I've presented this to the facilities advisory committee and the fair board. So next slide, please. So future maintenance plans. So this is kind of where I was trying to get to. Fair Complex, now known as West Side Commons, is going to be coordinating with county facilities on solutions for future and long-range maintenance plans to preserve the remaining buildings and infrastructure until the approved master plan can be funded and implemented. So once county facilities concludes their work on their own master plan, and they roll the county Fairgrounds master plan into that, and the board makes their decisions on their priorities and those kinds of things. But in the meantime, a parallel track that I'm going to be working with county facilities on is what can we do to preserve what we've got in the meantime. So we don't know what that's going to look like, but we will be providing updates and to the Fair Board and the FAC and at our next joint meeting. And so that concludes my presentation on the maintenance plan, and I'm happy to answer any questions if needed. Okay, hearing none. Next slide, please. And that is a discussion as required by the Memorandum of Understanding. I don't know who is going to facilitate this. Let me look at our I guess Chair Harrington and all the board and Fair Board members. In the MOU, it specifically asks the Fair Board to provide feedback about the county administrative support, recommendations for improvement, if any, and operational issues, if any. So I will turn it over to your two bodies. I think Chair Harrington may have stepped away.
No, I'm right here.
Oh, there she is.
So we all have the slide in front of us. Well, for Fair Board President Seidel's benefit, there's feedback from the Fair Board about county administrative support, recommendation for improvement, if any, and any operational issues. So Fair Board members, thoughts?
Yeah, I'd like to chime in if I could. I'm very pleased to hear, Chair Harrington, that you rolled the facilities from the fair into the county's master plan. If I heard correctly, it takes a champion to do something on the fairgrounds. Otherwise, things don't happen. Historically, there's never been any funding to put up new facilities, and unless somebody steps up and makes that a priority, it just simply doesn't happen. There are two main things that the Fair Board gets beat up about, and one of them is facilities, and one of them is because of the biosecurity and the way we handle it. But we live in a new day. The new day is that we're more aware, hyper aware of the biosecurity issues. And also the facilities are getting older, whether people want to admit it or not. They're getting older and aged and becoming more of a burden to try to maintain. So again, I thank you for taking that on, and I hope that that even if it's spread out over a number of years, if we can point to specific funding for the public's benefit and say these are the things that are going to happen in the future, that will go a long ways toward helping to calm people's fears about what's happening with the facilities.
Thank you, Mr. Dyke. As a point of reference, each of the board members, Board of Commissioner members, are being interviewed by the project team for the Washington County-wide facilities master plan. And so as I just went through mine a few weeks ago, I reconfirmed with them what different aspects of facilities were being included in this overall strategic master plan for the county, and that included the Fairgrounds master plan. I look forward to our having from our staff, county administrative staff, a project timeline, so that as there are meetings where the results of that project are shared with us, that we can also ensure that the members of the Fair Board are aware of that as well, so that you're on the journey with us, just as other boards and commissions are for particular domains, whether it's for the the courthouse, the juvenile justice facilities, community corrections, so on and so forth. So stay tuned. As we as an agency, as we continue to ramp down somewhat it feels like a drain more than anything on COVID response, and get back to more and more of our usual business plus economic recovery, we'll have clearer timelines for projects like that. So I remain hopeful over the next couple of years that we'll have a clearer picture about what all the needs are across the county and how we can work together to ensure that we have better resources applied to the various needs, including for the fairgrounds. Any other fair board thoughts?
This is Bob Rollinger. I'd just like to say how much we enjoyed having our meeting out at the fairgrounds during the fair with the county commissioners, and I hope we do that every year. It was a lot of fun, and it was a good atmosphere to just get to chat and walk around the fairgrounds with you. So I hope we'll do that again, and I appreciate as well as the board your hard work and attention to us. So thank you.
I'll also add the fair board meeting that you all had before the fair. There were questions around the horse arena and the surface for that. And I thought Leah did a really good job of trying to address the various needs that were expressed. And I know that there's follow-up during the fair and after the fair, but I think the intention remains clear, and that is to try and ensure that the facility has the highest possible and best use by all the community members involved. And I mean, we can see time and time again that there's a whole variety of opinions, but I really applaud the problem solving that goes along with that. So, onward hoping we go together. I never knew what was it, 10 minus, I'd never heard of that before. So I learned a lot in short order. I hope it will get easier, Leah.
It will. We're bringing in just so you all know, we're contracting with a consultant that one of our 4-H members recommended, and he's got a very busy schedule, but he's coming out in November to let us know what, if anything, should be done to that arena, and then we'll get whatever recommendations they have. We'll get done, and we'll make sure that there's always going to be people that are unhappy, but we'll try to make as many people as happy as possible.
Well, and I think also I should compliment you on having the patience of Job during the course of the spring with state protocols that evolved from 1 month to the next, 1 week to the next. So we've seen things settle out here in 2021, which is why we were able to have a fair in 2021 versus in 2020. And I just hope that we'll continue to have more smooth sailing in the years ahead, because clearly the community enjoyed having a fair for 10 days versus just the 4.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
You proved it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those, build it, they will come. They did.
I want to echo the sentiment Bob made. I really enjoyed the combined in-person meetings that we've had. So I really appreciate it and look forward to the next time or next year. I attended the event with my boys, and it was very well done. My kids enjoyed it. I can just see everyone having a great time. It was very safe. Everything seemed to be labeled. And even if you had to navigate to find restrooms, it was very well done. I have to commend you. The board, Leah, you all did a really great job. And I say that with somebody who coordinated festivals. You know, I come in with that experience of doing the Pan-African Festival. So it takes a lot. It's very stressful doing the event, but I didn't see it. So it was very seamless and effortless. And our favorite was, of course, the animals. So Bob, we spend some time with hanging out on that area. You know, you asked for feedback. It's not a big deal, but our board, the combined board and the two boards meeting that we've had in person, it would be great if you could offer a variety of different foods. There's only pork available. I don't eat. So a vegetarian option would be greatly appreciated next year.
Noted. Thank you. Pam, go ahead.
I'd just like to say thank you for having the vaccination clinic there. Excuse me, my dog's barking, but I think having the vaccination clinic was really smart as well. So I appreciated that.
Yes, thanks to the county for making that happen. That was wonderful. And just on my part, I just want to say thank you to everybody again, the support for the Fair Board to say, let's have a fair for the community and the commissioners, and Sia and Tanya, who came out and helped with some things. And also just thank you for coming out to the fair. It's nice to see you. I ran into Tanya and her family at the fair, and Roy and I and his wife got to walk around a little bit, and Jerry and Judy and Nafisa, your children were so adorable. One of them wanted to stay with me. I felt very honored that he was like, yeah, go on, I'm staying with her. So it was, you know, and a joy got to come out. We got to finally meet him for the first time in person. So thank you again for just, I really do enjoy it when commissioners come out to the fair for just my 21st year. And for many years, usually the only commissioners I would see would be Andy and Roy. So it was nice to have our commissioners here at the fair, and it was great to see you. So thank you.
I'd like to add one thing before we leave, and that is that over my years, I've seen many people come and go, and it's always sad. We're going to lose one of our stalwarts in Sia in about less than a month. And I think it goes maybe unsaid, but I'm going to say it anyway, that I have never seen anybody pour heart and soul more into county activities. We were going through transitions. We're still going through transitions, and she's been there to pick up the slack. She's been there to do what needed to be done. She doesn't get all the pats on the back. She doesn't get the big medals or the, you know, whatever else trophies that you give, but she's been consistently there. And I just think she's been terrific. And I hope that the Fair Board maybe this is her last time with you, that you understand as well that you were in her heart deeply and in her activities deeply, and you would not achieve, I know I wouldn't achieve anything at the county at all without the staff over the years. Mostly are all disappearing now, and I'm always sad to see them go. And here's another one that's on her way out the door and not forgotten. So thank you for, you've just been terrific. I'm going to deeply miss you, and I think everybody else will too. So I'm saying this because you're not going to be with this group again. So thanks for your efforts.
Commissioner Rogers, thank you for that. It has been a joy to work with the Fair Board and the West Side Commons over the years. I will miss you all greatly. And all I can say is keep on doing the good work. Thank you.
Chair Harrington, can I make one more kudos to Leah? Whoever we're doing the parking did an excellent job. Hire that group every day or any day you have any activities, because they were easy in, easy out.
They were amazing. They were a brand new volunteer group for us this year, and they were nervous. I was nervous, and they were amazing. We hire a Hillsborough police officer to head the parking lot, And so every year he never knows what kind of group he's going to get. And he came in and said, I'm not coming back if it's not this group that's going to do parking from now on. So they did an amazing job. So thank you. I will pass along your kudos because they were amazing. We got a lot of positive feedback and we never get positive feedback about parking. So thank you.
All righty. Anything else, folks?
I think that's it. It was great to see everybody. It's been a while.
So what are the dates for the fair next year?
Oh, geez. Well, let me look. I don't remember.
Usually you know that.
I don't know. The 10 days is kind of throwing me. So I've said it wrong a couple times. So now I look every time. So I never say it wrong. It is July 22nd through July 31st of 2022. So we'll see you all there.
Terrific. Thank you, Leah. All righty. Well, without any further comments, I believe we'll be adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
See ya.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.